Bone is asking when the coaches are going to tour the state. Do you know anything about that?
They hit it really hard while they could, but there's a dead period right now until the end of March. So, coaches cannot go out anywhere across the nation, any staff. So as soon as that opens up here in late March, early April, then they will be everywhere again. And I think it was funny. I was just talking about that event with Ed Foley, and he told us a really funny story that, okay, he's the special teams coordinator, right? And he joked that, he got here, and I think the second day that he was actually here that, the West Side phenomenal kicker from West Side, Tristan Alvano, committed. And so Coach Foley's like, hey, I was here 2 days and I'm done. Recruiting done. And he's like, oh, and I got a long snapper. So then he started talking about, he's just out, and he's very famous for he's a restaurateur deluxe. He just goes and finds all the best restaurants wherever he's at. Proud Philly guy, New Jersey, born and raised, and then Philly after that. And, anyway, he was out, going to high schools in the state here, and he went out, not all the way out west Nebraska, but more like central Nebraska, around Grand Island and Kearney kind of areas, Norfolk, and so apparently he was on his way home, and he doesn't even remember the name of the high school, but he just comes across it, and he's like, yeah, okay, I'll just pull in here. And, and so he goes in there to the office, and, the secretary working there, or, the receptionist there in the high school office is like, yeah, can I help you? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm Ed Foley. Is Coach here? Is Coach available? And, she has no idea who he is. Which, probably nobody really would at this point. But she's like, no, he's in class right now. And so he's like, well, okay. Is it okay if I wait for class to be over? Or she's like, no, I'm sorry. You can't wait here and stuff. So he's like, okay. And so he leaves a message, and, he gets in his car and he starts driving back home to Lincoln. And about a half hour later, the coach there calls him back, and he's like, I'm so sorry that we missed you. And he's like, that's okay. I'll be back in 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah. I was joking, obviously, but yeah. But yeah, so no, they've made the state of Nebraska, they've made such a priority. And I think you've already seen that maybe some of the previous coaching staffs would look at in-state recruits and say, you know what, we don't need to offer them a scholarship because they're going to walk on here. Obviously, in the past few years, we've seen how much recruiting is picked up from out of state for Nebraska prospects, and you see them going, not being Nebraska recruits because they have other opportunities. And so I think with Matt Rule being a former walk-on himself at Penn State, really elevates this process to where he can see guys that have the potential that can make it at this level, and not think of them as a walk-on. And they're offering them scholarships now. A product of that in this current class that they just signed is Omaha West Side wide receiver Jalen Lloyd, who is one of the fastest guys in the state. And Matt Rule saw that, and this kid was going to go. He was going to commit to run track before Matt Rule offered him a scholarship to play football. So I think that's just a big key where he can recognize this. And not only Jalen Lloyd and Malachi Coleman, two of the fastest guys that you're going to see at the, sub 10-4 guys. And Ed Foley even commented on that. You two guys like this, less than 50 miles apart. You don't see that in Houston and stuff. And So they got them both, and not just those guys. They plucked other guys out of the high school ranks from Texas, and they're probably, I think, the happiest guy right now on the planet is the head track coach at Nebraska, because Matt Rule's given them, I think, 5 of the fastest guys that you're going to find coming out of high school right now, and they're all going to run track besides play football. So yeah, it's a totally different way of thinking that Matt Rule comes with that is so, I don't know, it's just different than what you've ever seen really here at Nebraska, or I think a lot of other places. I mean, besides probably Baylor and Temple.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's when you watch this film too. I mean, of all these guys they brought in, they're all burners. I mean, it's crazy. So, yeah, speed kills.
Yeah, it always has, but even more so now with everybody spread out all over the field and everybody after playing in space. So that's what it's all about. Speed, speed, speed. So Matt Rule's showing us that with all the guys that he's tracking down in this recruiting class. And the next one,